More than 1,000 have been killed in Lebanon since the beginning of this month. More than 1 million displaced. Most flee from the south and Beirut towards the north and Mount Lebanon, where I'm from. On top of all the destruction, the death, the split-second decisions families have to make about what to carry and what to leave behind to be destroyed. On top of all of that, there's a moral dilemma, one that's splitting society in Lebanon. But first, for context, Hezbollah is a Lebanese political party which participates in the official Lebanese government and parliament, but whose military wing has long ignored the Lebanese state when it comes to its war decisions and military operations. And since 2019, mass protests have erupted in Lebanon against Hezbollah, even originating in South Lebanon, which has historically been the party's stronghold. Despite the waning support and the rising opposition, the South remains Hezbollah's main base. So, when over 1 million are displaced from the south, it is inevitable that some Hezbollah operatives will be among them. We don't have clear numbers on the composition of the displaced population, as in, we don't have precise numbers on how many among them are militants, but just by looking at who's actually fleeing, children, elderly people, families, it is equally clear that the majority are not militants. Now, South Lebanon has been under near constant bombardment for decades. Much of the rest of the country has grown callous or numb. Life continues normally despite devastation just 2 hours to the south. Now to the story. Aramun and Badaran, areas that had never been bombed before, have now been bombed. And the explanation provided by Israel was that Hezbollah operatives were among the displaced people who were given shelter and housed in those villages. We need to compare villages such as Aramun al-Badaran, which welcomed refugees, to places like Ashrafiyeh, where refugees from the south were strictly prohibited from renting houses or seeking shelter. In Aramun al-Badaran, families without the means to check and vet who's a militant and who's not have opened their houses to other families fleeing bombardment, understandably. But at times, the cost was the host family's life. What an impossible position to be in. Do you protect yourself and your family from a possible risk, or do you protect another family from an assured, certain risk, knowing that that same risk may also walk through the door? What an impossible position for the households in Ashrafiyeh as well. To turn away their fellow Lebanese refugees, their fellow citizens as they're running for their lives in order to protect their children's lives. That is also a horribly difficult position to be in. How dare we turn away our own people as they're fleeing for their lives? Like, where are they supposed to go? To the beach? Well, they did. And when they did, a horrific massacre ensued. 12 people, including children, were killed in their tents as they took refuge on the beach because they had nowhere else to go. In Lebanon, there's broad agreement that the Israeli airstrikes claimed those children's lives on the beach. But an internal blame game is also unfolding, some pointing fingers at neighborhoods which refused to host the families that later turned into ashes on the sand. My whole effort on this channel is an exercise in political empathy. So let's try and put ourselves in everybody's shoes here, alright? The Lebanese government did not enter this war. That is not fighting this war. The same goes for the Lebanese army. Many Lebanese voices, including and especially among the refugees from the south, many of those voices are loud and angry at their leaders. They're blaming Hezbollah for dragging them into this war. Especially that at the beginning of this most recent flare-up in March, Hezbollah literally said that it was striking Israel to avenge the killing of Khamenei. The reaction among the refugees from the south is visceral. How dare their leaders enter a war that would render them inevitably killed or homeless? And for what? Revenge for Khamenei, who's backed by a state, an army, and money. And the ones that are supposed to pay the price with their lives? Villagers, vulnerable farmers with nothing but their homes and crops. They're the ones that are supposed to avenge the killing of the Ayatollah? Hell to the no, many said. Now, the counter-argument to all that I just said, because this is an exercise in political empathy, is that this was naive. That everything I just said is naive. And that Lebanon was in the plan, that war was inevitable, that it was always inevitable. that Lebanon was going to get bombed whether Hezbollah fired rockets or not. That Lebanon has always been part of that greater Israel vision and therefore has always been under Israeli threat. And that even if Hezbollah hadn't fired any rockets, Lebanon would have still gotten bombed because Hezbollah exists. And that even if Hezbollah did not exist, some people point to statements made by Israeli officials such as Benjamin Netanyahu before the UN General Assembly, statements alluding to the vision and aspiration of Greater Israel, or Israel Shlima. And according to that vision, invasion, land grab, annexation were going to come Lebanon's way, whether Hezbollah existed or not. We have covered a few impossible situations, but perhaps the most impossible situation of all is that of Lebanon itself. And by Lebanon, I don't just mean the ideal in our imagination. That I don't just mean the country, I mean its people, the people who belong to it and only to it. Those without foreign loyalty and external allegiance or appetite for war, those who just want to build and raise their children in peace. Because right now, they have nowhere to turn. Look inwards, the state is weak, the army is limited, basic services are barely holding together. Look west, the very powers that claim to safeguard and stand up for global order and stability are backing the force that's bombing Lebanese cities tonight. Look east, well, Iranian interference is exactly what people rose up against in 2019. The idea that Lebanon would house a proxy, a paramilitary group that would operate outside the bounds, the sovereignty, and the statehood of Lebanon. So where do you go when every direction fails you? That is Lebanon's painful reality. A country so in love with life, yet being ravaged and slowly torn apart. A people exhausted, grieving, trying to survive, yet trapped between forces far bigger than themselves. Lebanon did not choose this war. Its people aren't expendable. They are not to be killed and punished for Hezbollah's decisions, nor are they meant to stand idly by and watch as their country is being swallowed by a regional annexation project. Not this, not that. Then what? Then them. Look at them. The nurses, the volunteers, the first responders. Hands that run towards the blast, not away. Stitching bodies, turning hallways into lifelines, carrying strangers. Not this, not that. Them.